Hey guys, I'm Jeremy, and here's another story of how I almost died. I wish I didn't have so many of these kinds of stories, but when you live a crazy, adventurous lifestyle, accidents can happen. And unfortunately, this time I was trying to make a hiking trail, and I was impaled. So bamboo is actually a pretty tasty Chinese dish that they make in restaurants, and it's definitely a lot better when you chew it in your teeth. Having it directly go into your stomach, not quite as fun. So here's the story of how I got impaled. I hope you enjoy. So this story happened last year in July of 2021. So at this time, I'd been doing tours for a few years. And of course, because of COVID, it made everything more difficult. So just to give you a background of kind of the area I was at, I was in the center of China in a place called Chengdu in Sichuan province. And everything west of Chengdu, like about 100 miles or so, is like a Tibetan area of Sichuan province. One of them's Aba and the other one is Ganza. And so a lot of the times, if there's any COVID outbreaks, I can't go there. There's some issues and this and that. And plus, it's just a longer drive. Like it's, at least 2-3 hours to get to those places. So there's definitely some other really pretty places that aren't quite as far. And so one of these places I like is near Pengzhou called yinchanguo, and another spot called yinghua shan. So these spots were super popular up until about 12 or 13 years ago when an earthquake hit Sichuan in 2008, and the whole area was destroyed. Not just that area, but like 400 or 500 kilometers of that whole fault line down from like the middle of Sichuan province all the way up to Gansu. So that was a super popular tourist spot. Yinchanguo is one of the longest elevated trails. Like they made the actual footbridge along the inside of that gorge. And so it was super pretty, beautiful views, nice water and everything like that. Everything was destroyed. I don't know how many people died there. It was one of the most famous places for people to get photographs for wedding photos and stuff. So at least 30, 40, 50 people died or something like that, who knows. And so they never repaired that area or let people back in. And so the other area was yinghua shan, which had another road that went up there, and there was a nice waterfall, and you could also take a cable car up to the top of the mountain. And so that was also all destroyed. That cable car was actually just finished a month before the earthquake happened, and they didn't even have customers coming yet. And there was even a few of the construction workers or people that work there actually in the chairlift when the earthquake hit. I couldn't imagine, in some ways, I guess you're safe as long as it doesn't break, but you're stuck up there during an earthquake. So that must have been a really intense experience. I actually wanted to hike all the way out to the ruins of that chairlift, but it's pretty hard to get to. It takes a few hours and the trail's pretty much destroyed. But they actually, in the last few years, the local government in that area rebuilt a lot of the paths and stairs and stuff like that. So it's super nice. But then the big government, whoever's above them, ended up closing it and not allowing them in. So when you come up to that area of yinghua shan, you can't get through. There's a security guard and a gate. They don't let cars go through, and they don't let people walk through. So of course, in some of these cases, if you're a local or some of the people, sometimes people can't get through because I've seen people drive up there. But for us, they wouldn't let us through. So before I had gone to yinghua shan, I figured I'd check out yinchanguo to the left, which they're right next to each other. And so I researched this area and I headed out there, I guess the first time by myself. And before you get to those two parks, you kind of have an area where people still go to feed the monkeys and hang out in the water and stuff like that. And so I took a left to where yinchanguo was, and I saw the gate was open, or maybe I went around the gate and I could go inside. And I went up a bit of those stairs and was checking it out, which, that stuff's like, 100 feet above the water or the cliffs. And I was like, I don't know how good this would be. Like, if this thing collapsed and like I got impaled, like there would be monkeys eating me in like 20 minutes. So I was like, probably not a good idea. So later on, I brought a group out there at their own risk because I knew it would be a little dangerous. And, it was really sturdy, those stairs going up, because they rebuilt that so that they could like have people go up and like test that water or something like that to monitor it for either water levels or earthquakes or whatever. And so we went up quite a bit for like an hour and a half or two, and it is an awesome hike. I mean, you see the ruins of the old parts of, where they used to have the walkways on the side of the cliffs and the old stairs and some signs. So it is kind of neat and quite eerie at the same time. And then we camped below there and, had a really nice time and everything. And then we went off into Yinghua Shan, which at least that's safer. So I was never going to bring people off on that stairs and that stuff because it's too dangerous. But at least the Yinghua Shan is safe, but, they're blocking the gate there. So I figured we could go down into the water, and I brought people in that way, and we just kind of walked through, and that's fine, but they could still see us pretty easily, especially once we come up. And so I didn't want to like bring people over there and like maybe we'll get caught and have to, get told to leave. And so I was like, why don't I just make a trail around like the left side? And I was lucky because there was like the last hotel in town, and next to it there's stairs going up the mountain. So there's already a trail kind of going up. I just needed to make one off that one to the right, like, 150 meters or something like that. And so I ended up buying kind of like a saw for trimming or something. I don't even know the proper name for it. And I had done trails, as a kid. I'd make trails. I'd usually go out with like the clippers to do that, which if I do it again, I would just get the basic clippers. You don't need that saw thing because it's kind of dangerous, obviously. And I started, cutting some places and kind of making a route through the woods there. And I mean, it's not too bad, but you've definitely got, some areas where it's kind of, at an angle. And also pretty damp at times. Like I think that day I went there, it was raining earlier that day, so it was quite slippery. And so, I don't know, I got maybe halfway done, and then I was just, I figured I'd kind of scout ahead to see how far the road was and how far I was past that security checkpoint. And so I kind of went through the forest and down, I got to the road, I was like, okay, it's not too bad. And then I was coming back, and I think what I needed to do was get another battery because the battery died. So the other one was at my backpack, which was, another 5 or 10 minutes back. And then, as I mentioned, it's really slippery. And of course, I was being really careful because I didn't want to fall on that saw. I mean, if I fell on that saw, I would be definitely in much worse trouble than anything. That's super dangerous. So I had the saw kind of off when I'm walking ahead in case I did slip or something like that. And so there was a point where it was kind of, at an angle and kind of a, steep and slippery. And I wasn't even that high off the ground. I must have been leaning down already, and I did slip. So the good news is that, the saw thing was, out of my way. But the problem is that I slipped and fell, and I only had one hand to break my fall, and it didn't. It was just, I slipped so quickly that I couldn't break the fall, and I fell immediately onto the ground, right on an area where, a piece of bamboo was sticking out, went directly into my stomach. I was like, fuck. I stood up and I looked down and I'm like, shit. Obviously super painful. And so I was like, holy shit, what should I do? At first I wasn't even sure if I should pull it out, but I was like, it's going to bleed all over the place. So I should just leave it until I get to a clinic or something like that. And so I probably could have just gone down to, my van, maybe on the road, and just made the easiest route possible. But I couldn't because I needed to get my backpack. I think my license was in there and stuff. And so that even took me a little while because, like I said, the trail wasn't developed yet. And a lot of stuff looks the same, and I'm a little bit in shock. And so that must have taken me a half hour of walking around worried I'd, slip and fall or something. And so I finally get down to my van, and I'm driving away. And, of course, it's just dirt road, so it's super bumpy. And every time you hit a bump, you're just like, oh, it's just like getting kicked in the stomach. I get up to the first, not that village, that town is too small, but after a half hour, I get to that town, and, I walk into this clinic, and it's a small clinic, and they're like, we can't do this here, you know? And they're like, you have to go to a bigger city. And I was like, shit, I'm gonna have to go all the way back to Chengdu, which was, you know, like an hour and a half. So luckily, you know, nothing bad happened or anything. I was able to drive, even though I was a little bit in shock. And I got to the hospital, and, you know, it's funny in China because, you know, everyone says it's like socialist or communist. I mean, if you don't have money, like, they don't treat you. You have to pay in advance. So, like, the first thing they do is, you know, they took me in the you know, I went to the emergency room, and, you know, they checked everything out. But before they'll do anything, you definitely have to pay these bills. So they gave me like 3 different yellow papers, and I don't remember what the cost was. It was probably like, you know, a couple $100 or something, or at least $100. So not like really expensive for the circumstance, but you definitely do have to pay in advance. So just know that if you don't have your like health insurance or whatever right there. And so, yeah, they, you know, they obviously, you know, pulled that out and stitched that together. And luckily that had, you know, gone into my skin and into like my fat, but it didn't puncture my actual stomach. If that had happened, like, I would probably be in the hospital for a long time, or at least weeks to recover, where at least with this, you know, I was able to, you know, recover in like a week or 2. So good thing I got that beer belly going on. That thing saved my life. So yeah, I didn't end up bringing a tour group back there anyway, and not just because of that trail issue. That's actually, like everything else, it's a sensitive area kind of, so you always have to go to like a police station whenever I went there, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna go to the police station. And then the hotels took us to one time, and then the other times they wouldn't take us, so I was just like, it's not really worth going back, right? So, but still, one of the most beautiful places near Chengdu, within like 60 miles, so unfortunate that they've pretty much closed it down. Maybe in the future they'll open it up again, but you know, just one of the other reasons I mentioned why I leave China. Just all these places are always like closed to the public, or there's such a huge runaround, it's not worth going. You know, of course, I couldn't really put it into the category like I could have died, but you know, imagine like if that bamboo was, you know, like a foot long or something like that, you know, or longer, and that literally went right through me. And I was thinking of that after. It's like, holy shit. So yeah, I got pretty lucky there, you know. Definitely could have been worse, and I recovered okay. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed one of my tragic stories again. I've got a few other you could check out. Another video where I almost drowned, where I got ran over by an SUV 15 years ago in China, and a couple other things you could check out. So pretty crazy things, but you know, if you're off in these really remote areas that are pretty dangerous, anything's possible. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content. My channel has a lot of different stuff from my travels around the world, whether hiking or biking, and some of the things over the years I've done, whether I was in the military, commercial fishing in Alaska, or my experience living in China and Taiwan for 15 years. And I was a teacher there and led tours and did all kinds of stuff. So if that stuff's beneficial for you or entertaining, subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers.